Hi, welcome back to my channel. Basically I was going to do a video on how people, there's this, I was watching this video about how this woman was talking about how some people basically liken themselves to a neurotypical person, what that means. Like, obviously you'd consider neurotypical, obviously there's an idea of what neurotypical is, understandably. Like, it might be someone that doesn't suffer or, you know, have a specific, or hasn't got certain specific needs or whatever. I don't know how you define neurotypical, but I suppose you can kind of get what I mean. But I do feel like it's also a societal concept, because I was like, it's something else. Like, I believe God made us all perfect. It's something else that society and we ourselves can literally get ourselves wrapped up in. It's something else to say, oh, I'm not like so-and-so. Are we not all supposed to be different? Like, are we all supposed to be like everyone else? Has that ever been the case? And I think obviously this is why learning about yourself and being more aware of your own needs and your own specifications is so important, but also that, like, releasing that expectation, and also like beating yourself up for certain things that you don't do is really helpful. Like, and I think this might even go into, it can go into anything, but it can be even in like jobs. Like, I feel like there's a societal construct standard of getting a 9-to-5 job, but whatever that job is has a certain skill set which might not go well with your skill set and your own personal needs and your own personal way of thinking. So I feel like basically not just like basically to let that go is like really helpful. If you have like you can have like negative self-talk, which sometimes I think I've always been kind of careful about certain negative talk I've had. Not always, but I've kind of like grown up to be more careful about when I don't know, but if you have negative self-talk, especially from like a young age, it's difficult because you then can like get like wrapped up in things like where you actually try and consider yourself to be something that you kind of try and force yourself in this like box, which is like not really real. And at the end of the day, like, you can just have an expectation which is basically an idol, if you like. It's a fallacy, it's not real, and you're really just creating cognitive dissonance for yourself if you do sort of try and live to that, because it's not real. It's an idea that you're trying to force, and it's just not real. So it's just easy to be frustrated by this, though. Obviously, if you're not being honest, like, you're going to be frustrated with failure, and failure is something that you can experience if you are not honest about the situation at hand. And the fact is, yeah, like, yeah, so there we go. And it's even for people, I just did a video about ADHD actually, and people that, even though I don't have ADHD myself, I can see that everyone's on a spectrum. And that basically, if you do have ADHD, your brain is actually, they say your brain stops developing at 25. If you have ADHD or symptoms of ADHD, your brain doesn't stop developing until 28, and even then it's actually impaired. So you might feel like if you get to near 25, you might be like, oh well, I'm almost fully developed. Why am I still feeling certain things that I might have felt in childhood that aren't neurotypical or whatever? The fact is, like, that's not, even though that's how some people develop until 25, that's not how everyone develops at 25. You're not abnormal for potentially having symptoms that you'd consider on the spectrum of ADHD. And really, it's nothing to be, like, you know, beating yourself up about, shaming yourself for, but it can just be internalized. Like, it's not really something that you necessarily are, like, you know, forced to do or whatever. Sometimes it's just subconscious, you don't even realise you're doing it. Sometimes your parents do it to you even subconsciously. They probably don't want to hurt you, but that's something that they do, that you then internalise. So yeah, like, and I think you can't force yourself to do something and then try and learn what your limits are, because you're kind of contradicting the two. Yeah, like, you can't that doesn't really work together. Like, I'm someone where it's like, it's good to learn your limits and it's healthy to learn your limits. I've learned that the hard way, as I said before, in my experience with my mental health in the past. If you don't try and learn your limits, you are literally forcing yourself, and it's counterproductive. You're going two ways, and then not only that, you're creating cognitive dissonance in your mind, and your mind will attack through coping mechanisms to your own self, be that whatever that is for you. And I've done another video on coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, which you can implement yourself. It doesn't have to just be from someone else. So, and also like at work, I don't think, and I've gone into this in the past, I don't think always in certain jobs they mean to do this, but sometimes because of the way it's structured and the fact that humans aren't all perfect, sometimes management and peers and stuff, you can sort of get boxed yourself into this like role, and you can feel you're being mistreated because of like their own standards, their own ways of operating. And like sometimes it's like, and it's great, some places are really good at managing you. Like, I've been to some great schools where they're really appreciative of different needs, they're really appreciative of different abilities, and they really try and support you as well as they can. And I feel like that's kind of how schools operate, to be fair. But once you do move into the workplace, I feel like it kind of is a bit different. You do get different people. Sometimes obviously the people that work there aren't necessarily healthy themselves, even without the job, and they might, you know, it might just be difficult if you do have specific needs to be able to accommodate them. And even and to be able to, like, if the job's not necessarily on your job set, if that makes sense, like if the job's challenging whilst managing yourself, that's going to be a really crap situation. If you know you've got certain specific needs and then you go into a job that might like impair having to deal with those needs, you're really setting yourself up for like a challenging time, because obviously you're going to want to look after yourself, but then you're not going to do well in the job if you're focusing too hard on yourself. And then if you do want to, you know, try hard at the job, you know, you're not going to neglect yourself, I hope, but like, you know, it's just not necessarily a good thing. So that's why being very aware of your self is great. And also just being aware of that you can, like, then once you are more in touch with yourself, you can start celebrating the small wins in your life more, and basically appreciate what's like valuable within yourself. And I think this is just like a part of growing up, because at the end of the day we do look to other people as children to like look up to and to like be like. But if you're not necessarily like, because you're obviously not going to be exactly like anyone else, if you're not like those people, you do then have to like grow up a bit and like just see that like you're your own person and you're the parent of your own self now. Like, you can't like rely on someone else's idea. Like, it's not their job to like parent you. Like, yeah, they're not your parent, you're an adult. So yeah, basically, like, even if you're not an adult, like, you still have to like look after yourself, and people have various upbringings. So that's certainly something I'm interested to go into now, as that's something I've already talked about. So yeah, I just thought this was very interesting. But yeah, it's about celebrating the small wins for whatever that means to you. Like, you don't have to necessarily be a certain, because then it stops you from striving for things that aren't for you as well. I have talked about being in alignment. Like, you don't then necessarily have to strive towards things that aren't for you. You'll stop beating yourself up for things that you want or need or whatever so much. I do think we're always going to have this like subconscious stuff where, like, obviously you have to like be careful about what you encourage and don't encourage, but it'll be less restrictive than maybe what you've been used to as a child. So there's more expression and more freedom, and like that's what the goal is, really, to have freedom, isn't it, within yourself, to actually be able to be your full self and not beat yourself down for being not to a certain standard that you have set yourself up to. And it stops you from beating others down to a standard you're not set up to, is there? Like, you know, it's so easy to judge, like, and sometimes you do it without thinking about it, without realising it, as a coping strategy, understandably. But yeah, you have to be aware of yourself, you have to be aware of the things that you are like, and yeah, thank you for listening. Very interesting stuff. No one is neurotypical, by the way, that's also another thing. There's no perfect standard. There's no perfect standard to live up to. There's idolising people to a perfect standard. And I do think neurotypical is an understandable concept. Like, if there was a perfect person, I don't think there is actually a perfect person though, to be fair. No one doesn't struggle with anything, to be fair. So I understand the concept of neurotypical, but everyone does have different things. They might not all have illnesses, they might not all have, but everyone has the ability. We're all on a spectrum: depression, ADHD, anxiety, we all have those abilities. They're all natural human emotions. So I'm not sure if I fully believe in this neurotypical thing, to be fair. I mean, like, it's a concept, but it's not a goal, it's another idol. Very interesting. So yeah, thank you for listening, bye.